Hi guys, this is Carl Fatt from Virtuoso Mastering. I'm recording this video to show you how I like to use Acustica Audio's awesome plugins and how I take advantage of their hardware-like behavior, especially when you push them close to the edge or even a little over the edge. Okay, so this is a track I mastered for Sunlight Project. The title is This Is Our Time. He's a very good producer. And I only use the Aqua plugins on it. Let's listen to it from the break.
Come together, baby, it's the right time, right time. Everybody, celebrate the nighttime, nighttime. Good vibrations, hot sensations. You know this is our time, our time. Feeling the love in the room.
In this episode, I'm going to focus on how I treated the vocals. So let's listen to them in solo with all the plugins in bypass. To match the loudness between the processed and unprocessed audio, I'm going to use a script for Reaper, AB level matching by TB Pro Audio. This way, I'm going to be able to make decisions only based on the actual color and tone I introduce with the plugins. And I'm not going to be biased by the loudness changes, because as we all know, louder is always better. Okay, so let me resync the plugin delay compensation and bypass the plugin. I'm gonna mute delay and reverb and solo the vocal track. Okay, so keep in mind it's a stem mastering, so the vocals already have some delay and reverb printed on them. Here it is.
Come together, baby, it's the right time, right time. Everybody, celebrate the nighttime, nighttime. Good vibrations, hot sensations. You know this is our time, our time.
Okay, as you can hear, they sound pretty good and polished, but I think they need to be bigger and fuller, especially in the lower mids area. And instead of using an EQ, I'm gonna go for a Crimson, a real gem that can work miracles, especially on tracks that need to stand out and grab your attention, like vocals, guitar solos, or synth riffs and stuff like that. Okay, so Crimson is a really unique tool, and it consists of a VCA style compressor followed by a saturator. The compressor is very flexible, and beside being aggressive and good at doing the typical SSL bass compressor glue trick, it can also be transparent thanks to its soft ratio settings. The saturator, on the other half of the plugin, is a beast of its own. It can thicken, saturate, distort, be almost transparent and subtle, or totally devastate beyond recognition whatever you feed it with. Okay, so let's follow the saturator's signal path. In the first stage, we encounter a low-pass filter that lets you saturate only the frequencies below the crossover point that it sets. And this is very useful because it helps you to tame excessive dirt that could build up in the higher frequencies. In the second stage, you can choose the type of saturation that you want to apply, and you can choose between a FET-like distortion that generates the warmer sounding even harmonics, or if you switch on the LED, or the Zener type that generates odd harmonics, brighter and perhaps harsher. In this case, I chose the FET-like distortion. Okay, right below it you find a switch that lets you select a soft, when the LED is off, or hard knee distortion. This setting helps you to achieve a steady and consistent saturation, even with highly dynamic signals. Let's say you feed it with an uncompressed vocal or guitar, for instance, with a very wide dynamic range. If you leave it in soft mode, it's going to distort only the peaks, leaving the rest of the signal almost unaffected. If instead you switch it to hard, you're going to get a more homogeneous, uniform and consistent saturation. Okay, so next you have the level knob that sets the loudness of the low pass and saturated signal only. Then you have the drive knob that works just like it would on a typical overdrive guitar pedal. And you also have this insane switch that essentially makes it work in a more precise way, in faster and more precise, at the expense of a higher CPU consumption, of course. Let me switch off the hard knee here because I'm not going to use it in the case of this voice. And the sixth stage is perhaps the most important one. It's the one that lets you decide what frequency range you're going to be applying the distortion or the saturation to. Okay, so let me show you how the filter actually works. If you choose the low frequencies, you have a bandpass centered at around 30 Hz. If you choose the low mid frequencies, you have a bandpass centered at around 350 Hz. If you choose the high mid frequencies, you have a bell centered at 1500 Hz. And if you choose the high frequencies, you have a bell at around 7 kilohertz. Plus, you have this HP mode, which I found out is very, very well suited for mastering. It has a gentle HP high pass curve and a gentle low pass curve. Okay, so let's get back to the track. As I said, I was after a fuller and warmer voice sound, and so I came up with these settings: no low pass filtering, FET type saturation, the warmest one, fairly high level, very high overdrive, insane engaged, and low mid frequencies. I'm gonna set the mix knob to the 100% position so you can hear exactly what this first Crimson adds to the voice. Okay, so let's listen to it.
Come together.
Don't forget there is the AB level matching plugin that it's matching the level. So if you hear bumps in the loudness, it's because of this plugin. Okay, so.
Come together. Baby, it's the right time, right time. Everybody.
I could have made this distortion even darker through the shape knob. Let's say very dark like this.
Come together. Baby, it's the right time, right time.
Or a little brighter.
Everybody. Celebrate the nighttime, nighttime.
Brighter still.
Good vibrations. Hot sensations. You know this is our time, our time.
But I prefer to keep it off to make it easier to blend with the dry signal, because if you start darkening the distorted sound in this frequency area, I found it becomes too detached and too difficult to blend in with the original signal. Okay, so the percentage was around 20%. Okay.
Come together, baby, it's the right time, right time.
And if I bypass this Crimson plugin, you're gonna hear the voice becoming much smaller.
Come together, baby, it's the right time, right time.
And when I engage it again, the body definitely increases.
Come together, baby, it's the right time, right time.
Of course, I'm not exaggerating these settings because I'm just mastering the track and not mixing it from scratch. So I'm just adding little touches here and there. Now, there is a special mode that I've switched on in the input section. The super saturation mode. This inserts the whole compressor in the second stage of the saturator, right here, so that you can thoroughly shape the dynamics of the distortion down to the smaller details. You can decide how much transients you're gonna let through with the attack, how fast you're gonna go back to unity gain with the release, and how hard you wanna compress with the threshold and ratio, and what type of compression, if super precise or average, and to what degree the lower frequencies are going to trigger the compression with this side chain filter. And then, of course, you have a makeup gain that lets you hit the saturation stage on different levels. There are also other parameters, but I'm not going to delve into them right now. In the case of this voice, super saturation mode is on. Okay, so all these low mids make the voice fuller, of course, but also a little dull. So I'm going to use another Crimson to make the top end stand out and shine more, to counterbalance this big body I've just added. Gonna switch in another Crimson, the second one. I'm gonna recalculate the plugin delay compensation. Okay, here we are. Of course, in this case, I'm engaging the high frequency filter, and I'm also choosing the Zener type saturation because in this case I'm looking for an exciter-like flavor, and odd harmonics are more suited in this case. Super saturation mode is on. Once again, I'm going to let you listen to the 100% wet signal of this high frequency saturation that I'm adding.
Come together, baby, it's the right time, right time. Everybody, celebrate the nighttime, nighttime.
Okay, in this case I've also engaged the initial low pass stage to tame a little the strength of the distortion in the high frequencies. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the percentage I've chosen. It's some 15%. Okay, so now I'm pretty much satisfied with the sound of the voice. Let's listen to it.
Come together, baby, it's the right time, right time.
Bypass.
Everybody, Celebrate the nighttime, nighttime.
Re-engage.
Vibrations, hot sensations.
Bypass.
You know this is our time, our time.
Re-engage.
Feeling the love in the room.
As I said, I'm pretty much satisfied with the sound of the voice, but the sibilants have become too loud and irritating with the second Crimson, the one that emphasizes the highs. So I'm gonna keep them at bay with an IVORY dynamic EQ, and I'm gonna make it behave as a de-esser. Okay, let me engage it. Recalculate the plugin delay compensation. This EQ doesn't apply a static set EQ curve, but it applies it dynamically through the action of a compressor, depending on when and how much you exceed the threshold. The processor is divided in 4 sections: A, B, C, and D. The A section is where the actual EQ takes place, where you equalize the main signal. The B section is where you can equalize the sidechain signal, the one that feeds the detector of the compressor. The C section, where you can tweak the compressor that dynamically applies the A section EQ curve on the main signal. And the D section, where you can activate or deactivate the dynamic circuit and decide the range within which the compressor is going to apply the EQ curve. If you set it to 0, the EQ is going to behave like an ordinary static one. And the further you move away from the 0 value, the greater the range of dynamic intervention that's going to take place. In this section, you can also engage the clipping units or decide whether the sidechain signal is going to be internal or external. The best way to use it as a de-esser is to equalize the sidechain signal in a way that minimizes the good, useful portion of the signal, while you should emphasize the offending and irritating frequencies that you want to reduce. In the case of this voice, I equalized the sidechain with a pretty dramatic curve, as you can see. I emphasized the 10K area, 8 dB, with a very large bell size, and used 2 almost coincident shelvings to take out of the equation the body of the voice. The actual EQ being dynamically applied on the main signal is a very gentle 3 dB dip in the same area that I previously boasted in the detector. The compressor is set to be fast, 3 milliseconds, but not too fast, to catch the sibilants, but at the same time avoid losing transparency. Release is fairly fast. Of course, the dynamic circuit is engaged, and the range parameter is minus 11 dBs. If you check the gain reduction meter while the voice is playing, you will see the EQ is being applied almost only when the sibilants occur. Let's listen to it and let's see the gain reduction meters.
Come together, baby, it's the right time, right time. Everybody, celebrate the nighttime, nighttime. Good vibrations, hot sensations. You know this is our time, our time. Feeling the love in the room.
I have to say it's doing a very good job in being transparent, but at the same time keeping at bay those sibilants. Okay, guys. So This is it for the first episode from Virtuoso Mastering. Hope I was able to share something useful. Also hope you forgive me for my rusty English. And please stay tuned, because in the next episode I'm going to show you how I treated the kick and the bass. Ciao!